We landed at Ben Gurion Airport in the morning. By the time we boarded the minibus, it was afternoon, and the road to Jerusalem was filling up with traffic. When my family and I planned this trip 2 years ago, we had no idea that a crucial vote in Knesset would take place the very day we arrived in Israel. As we passed through one of the main tunnels to the entrance to the city, traffic slowed to a stop. People started getting out of their cars, Israeli flags in hand, and walking through the tunnel. All around us, there was the sound of horns. Were they honking in support of the protests or in opposition? Slowly, we made our way through the tunnel and out onto Begin Boulevard, which passes right by the Israeli Parliament building. Even with the bus windows closed, we could smell the rancid aroma of the spray used by police to disperse the protesters. We drove on and made our way to the center of the city. We parked, stretched our legs, and walked toward the oldest Jerusalem neighborhood outside the old city walls, Yamin Moshe. And there, as the sun began to set above the golden-hued stones, Joe and I stood with my parents and my sister's family, her kids and our kids, all 10 of us with our arms around each other, and sang Shehechianu. Blessed are you, God, Shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh, for giving us life, sustaining us, and allowing us to reach this day. After the planning, after the uncertainty, after the traffic, we were here, in Israel together on this day of all days. We were there to celebrate my nephew's bar mitzvah, but we were there for so much more. We were there for the same reason our temple families were in Israel last December, and why so many adults have already signed up to travel to Israel with me and with the congregation this February. If by the end of this sermon you'd like to join us, there's still room. You can come on Wednesday to learn more. We were there for the same reason so many of you have made that long flight over the years. We go to Israel because we are connected spiritually and historically to the land and the people, because we want to learn and pray and explore the places where our ancestors walked so many years ago, and where our Israeli family and friends live and work today. We go because we want to share this with our children and experience the thriving, complex, diverse, and remarkable society that is Israel for ourselves. And we go because Israel's unique combination of Judaism, pluralism, and democracy makes us proud, and is a fulfillment of our people's messianic vision for a just society where Jews and everyone else who lives in the land are free to be who they are and are protected under the law. Israel is home to people with different languages, political perspectives, religious beliefs, and spiritual practices. Recognizing this diversity, the founders wrote a Declaration of Independence that envisioned Israel as a Jewish, pluralistic, and democratic state, declaring, "The state of Israel will be open for Jewish immigration and for the ingathering of the exiles. It will foster the development of the country for the benefit of all its inhabitants. It will be based on freedom, justice, and peace, as envisaged by the prophets of Israel. It will ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. It will guarantee freedom of religion, conscience, language, education, and culture." Therein is the paradox, and therein is the beauty of the state of Israel. It is a state open for Jewish immigration and for the ingathering of the exiles, an end to centuries of Jewish alienation, second-class citizenship, and uncertainty. And it is a state that guarantees freedom, justice, and peace, complete equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex, freedom of religion, conscience, language, education, and culture. The state of Israel, as envisioned by its heroic founders, is both a Jewish and a democratic state. This is the vision of Israel I and so many Jews here and in Israel are proud of. And this is the vision of Israel that is now under threat. I speak to you on this Day of Atonement as we gather alongside Jews around the world, as our people has for millennia, to say what happens in Israel matters to us. We American Jews cannot divorce ourselves from what is going on in Israel today. Our fate is bound up in theirs, and we cannot allow the current government of Israel to shatter the vision of our country's founders. Some of you may know about the current government's plans, but for those of you who don't, on the day my family and I landed in Israel, the government approved a judicial reform bill that limits the ability of the country's Supreme Court to evaluate the legality of legislation passed by the Knesset. Here in the United States, our Constitution assures a separation of powers and the ability of the judiciary to function as a check against the will of Congress and the executive. Exactly what the American Supreme Court has done time and time again. In Israel, which has no constitution or executive, the government's judicial reform bill vastly limits the Supreme Court's independence and asserts that the legislature has unchecked power. This is just the first step. Members of this current government intend to introduce legislation that will force Israeli women to sit at the back of buses, prevent Arab citizens of Israel from accessing basic services, strip legal protections from LGBTQ people, and ban the Israeli reform movement. Without the protection of an independent judiciary, the words of Israel's Declaration of Independence, equality of social and political rights to all inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex, will become meaningless. In an open letter published in the Times of Israel, 3 leading Israeli journalists and commentators spoke directly to us, the North American Jewish community. Diaspora Jews have both the right and the responsibility to speak out against a government that is undermining our society's cohesion and its democratic ethos. The North American Jewish community has steadfastly come to the aid of Israel at moments of crisis. Israel belongs first of all to its citizens, and they have the final word. But Israel also matters to the entire Jewish people. When an Israeli government strays beyond what your commitments to liberal democracy can abide, you have both the right and the responsibility to speak up. Israeli leaders need to hear where you stand. As American Jews, we may be able to ignore what is going on in Israel. We may be able to tune out the government's racist and vitriolic rhetoric. We may be able to tune out the thousands of impassioned protesters who have gathered peacefully across Israel now for 40 weeks in a row. But to do so risks shattering the bond that unites the Jewish family, that makes us more than just a religion, a group of individuals who pray and fast. We are a people, a family bound together by a history, a language, a shared vocabulary, and a shared vision of the future. On Rosh Hashanah, we met Shunammit, the great woman who hosted the prophet Elisha in her home and received from him a prophecy that she would give birth to a son at that same season, the season of life, the following year. Last night, we learned that that boy grew up, died, and was revived, miraculously brought back to life by Elisha. This morning, we go back in time to the moment just before Elisha's prophecy of the boy's birth. Shunammit has prepared the upstairs room so that Elisha can comfortably stay the night whenever he passes through town. She is sure he is a man of God, though he has not yet revealed himself to be a prophet. Still, she prepares food for him and hosts him with generosity and care each time he visits. After one such visit, Elisha approaches Shunammit and says, "Look, you've gone through all this trouble for me and for my servant. You've hosted us so well in your house. What can I do for you? Can I speak on your behalf to the king, or maybe the army commander?" "There's no need," she replies. Betoch ami anochi yoshevet. I live among my people. I don't need help from the king or the army commander, Shunammite insists, because I have my people, ami. My people will take care of me. Shunammite knows who she is, where she's from, and who her people are. She's a woman from the northern village of Shunem, as her name reflects, and she is an Israelite. She is part of Am Yisrael, the people of Israel, and she knows her people will take care of her. Why should we care about what happens in Israel? Because 7 million Jews live there, and they are our people. We are, all of us, Am Yisrael, the people of Israel who have survived from the days of Shunammite until now. Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people, lives on. This notion of peoplehood has been a central tenet of Judaism for thousands of years. We have always been more than just a religious faith, more than a set of beliefs. We have been and continue to be a people. As Yael Tamir, the Israeli academic and former member of Knesset, writes, we are a people with intimate feelings linking the past, the present, and the future. The fact that individuals feel they are part of a continuous entity induces in them mutual dependencies and responsibilities, and invigorates the will to jointly pursue common ends. This summer, our members, Eric and Linda Barr, donated 3 stained glass windows to Temple Sinai. These panels, now installed just downstairs, were designed and created by Eric's dad, Harold, and they include these words from the Mishnah. Kol Yisrael Aravim Ze Bazeh. All Israel is responsible for each other. We Jews are a people, all part of the same family. No matter how distant or how different or how strongly we may disagree, Jews in Israel and Jews in America are still one family. Saying you don't care about Israel is like saying you don't care about your cousins or your great aunt. Staying in touch takes work. Seeing each other isn't always easy, and we certainly don't always agree on everything. But we care about each other anyway, because we are family. In some families, distant relatives only see each other at funerals. And sometimes it feels like this with Jewish peoplehood, too. Our people has been seared by a vicious heritage of persecution, and that collective trauma has long been a cause for solidarity. Many of us feel part of the Jewish people most keenly when anti-Semitism strikes. A pipe bomb thrown at a synagogue in Bloomfield, a knife attack during a Hanukkah party in Muncie, a terrorist attack in Tel Aviv, a congregation in Short Hills forced to evacuate on Rosh Hashanah because of a bomb threat. In the wake of each attack, we have a visceral sense that Jews are all connected, because those who hate us equally, regardless of how observant we are or what language we speak or where we live. Being Jewish in America can feel like being part of a family that only gets together for funerals. But it needn't be this way. Dara Horn, novelist, author of the recent book, People Love Dead Jews, and Temple Sinai's Cooper Bernstein Scholar-in-Residence speaker, right here this November, writes of both the haunting reality of the world's fascination with Jewish deaths and also the enduring value of living a Jewish life. Something magical happened, Horn writes, when I switched over from looking online at news reports about anti-Semitic attacks to joining online Daf Yomi, daily Talmud study discussion groups. The algorithms caught on instantly, and suddenly I saw almost nothing online that wasn't related to discussions of the Talmud's opening pages, which contain a rambling, digressive, and almost bottomless conversation about when, where, and how to recite the Shema. As I followed the discussion, she says, I realized something stunning. Many of the sages arguing with one another on the page didn't live in the same generation or even in the same century, nor were they for the most part quoting written texts of those in the previous generation. Instead, these records were passed down almost entirely orally, written down only generations later. This would simply be a fascinating historical fact, except that as I turned the Talmud's pages, I discovered it wasn't, because these people's elaborate communal memory overlapped with mine. She continues, as I followed along while the rabbis debated how prayers should be said, I frequently bumped up against actual prayers and practices, blessings of gratitude for different foods, words to recite before a journey, how and when to bow and rise, that I myself had learned when I was young, that I too knew by heart. Of course, I only knew these things because of the people on the page and all the people after them who had made the conscious decision to pass these things down to me. We are a people constituted not only by our shared traumas, but also by our collective memory of an extraordinary culture and tradition that continues to this day in Israel and around the world. Betoch ami anochi yoshevet. I have my people, Shunammite reminds us, and so do we. We are a people bound together by a history, a language, a shared vocabulary, and a shared vision of the future. The promise of Israel represents that prophetic vision of a just society where Jews can live openly and freely as Jews, and where there is complete equality of social and political rights for all inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. This is the vision. This is the promise. This is who we are as a people. This is why Israel matters. Am Yisrael Chai.